Okay, so this is a story about a master software developer, a guy who spent 13 years meticulously, painstakingly building a billion-dollar product, only to have his entire philosophy on how to build things completely upended by a single encounter with AI. Honestly, it's a story that might just signal the end of coding as we know it.
And it all boils down to this one kind of wild statement: I ship code I don't read. Now, coming from a developer who is famous for obsessing over every single detail, every line of code, this just sounds insane, right? So what on earth is going on here?
And that's really the big question we're going to dig into. How does a true craftsman, a perfectionist, get to a point where he actually trusts a machine to write his code for him? Well, to really get the revolution, we first have to understand the man he used to be.
So let's rewind the clock a bit. To understand just how huge this shift is, we need to understand the craftsman. Because before all this AI stuff blew up, Peter Steinberger was the absolute definition of a meticulous developer. And he built this incredible company called PSPDFKit.
You know, his whole journey started with what was supposed to be a tiny one-month freelance gig, but he got obsessed with it. He turned that code into a full-blown product and then, over 13 years, grew it into a powerhouse framework used by giants like IBM, Dropbox, and SAP. We're talking a team of 70 people and code running on over 1 billion devices. This was no accident. It was built on a very specific philosophy.
And this quote right here, this was basically his North Star. He wasn't just building a tool. He was trying to create an experience. In a world filled with clunky, awful enterprise software, his insane focus on polish and detail made his product feel totally different, totally better. And this whole philosophy was backed by a really clear set of rules.
For him, the polish was the feature. He had this brilliant insight that if he could just win over the developers, the people who are actually in the trenches using the tool, they would become his champions inside their companies. And he did that by obsessing over every little detail and sharing his knowledge through these amazing, super insightful technical blog posts.
And this is where he was just brilliant from a business standpoint. He found this perfect sweet spot that almost everyone else avoids. Problems that are both really hard to solve and, let's be honest, pretty uninteresting to the average developer. I mean, nobody wakes up in the morning excited to parse PDF files. But by tackling that hard, uninteresting work, he built a powerful, almost untouchable business. But doing that for 13 years, that kind of intensity, well, it takes its toll. The success came at a huge cost, and it led to a critical, life-changing turning point.
He was just completely burned out. As he put it, being a CEO is a lonely job. You're the waste bin for every single problem that nobody else can solve. He had just lost his belief in the work. So he did something drastic. He sold his shares, and for 3 full years, he just vanished from the tech world. Some months, he didn't even turn on his computer.
But when he finally came back, the tech world had changed a lot. And a single interaction with a new tool gave him what he literally described as a holy fuck moment that would redefine his entire career.
I mean, think about it. After 3 years away, he was basically a stranger in his own field. The whole world of web development had shifted so much that he found himself asking basic questions like, what's a prop? He said it actually hurt. He felt like an idiot all over again. But you know what? That humility made him completely open to a new way of working.
And this is where everything changes. He took an old, messy side project, just a folder of code, dragged the entire thing into an AI tool, gave it a few simple prompts, and just watched. In just a few hours, it spit out a working app. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. And right there, in that moment, he realized this wasn't just a slightly better autocomplete. This was a fundamental shift in how software was going to be built from now on.
So that one moment, that one epiphany, forced him to basically throw out the old playbook and write a completely new one for building with AI. And these new principles, they're often the complete opposite of traditional software development.
So, what's the most important change? It's the death of the traditional pull request. You know the old process? You code for a week, then you get stuck in slow reviews, you're context switching, you're waiting 40 minutes for the test to run. The new way is what he calls a prompt request. It's a conversation. You give an AI agent a goal, it builds it, and you iterate on it together in minutes, not days.
Okay, but how does this actually work without turning into a total mess? Well, it all comes down to this one crucial idea he calls closing the loop. This is the secret sauce. For an AI to be really, truly effective at coding, it can't just write code. It has to be able to test its own work, see the errors, and then debug itself,
over and over in a continuous cycle.
So here's what that looks like in practice. The developer, the human, sets the high-level goal. The AI agent then writes the code and immediately runs a bunch of tests. If a test fails, it reads the error message, figures out what went wrong, tries to fix its own code, and then runs the tests again. And this loop just keeps going, sometimes for an hour straight, until every single test passes. The human is no longer a typist. You're a director.
And this is where it gets really wild. He claims he actually writes better code now that he isn't the one physically writing it. How is that possible? Well, because automating all the tedious stuff, all the data plumbing, it forces him to think at a much higher level. He's not focused on individual lines of code anymore, he's focused on the elegance and the testability of the entire system's architecture.
And there's a name for this new role: agentic engineering. It's the practice of being a systems architect. Your job is to design the blueprint and then manage a team of AI agents who handle all the construction. This elevates skills like systems thinking and clear communication way above the raw ability to just type out lines of code.
So what does all this mean? This shift from being a craftsman to being an architect. It has some massive implications, not just for individual developers, but for how we structure our entire companies and teams.
In this new world, things are going to look different. Teams will probably be smaller, made up of high-agency, senior engineers who can think like architects. The company itself has to be refactored around this new workflow. Things like code reviews, they basically become obsolete. And the prompts you write, they become more valuable than the code itself because the prompt is the new source of truth that guides the final product.
So just how big of a shakeup are we talking about here? Well, Peter's estimate is that a company could get the same amount of work done with just 30% of the engineers it has today. And it's not just about raw speed. It's about getting rid of all the friction, the communication overhead, the reviews, the context switching that eats up so much of a traditional team's time.
Which really leaves all of us with a final, massive question to chew on. As these AI tools get more and more powerful, what is the true value a developer provides? Is it the physical act of writing code, or is it the vision to architect a solution and guide intelligent agents to build it? The answer to that is going to define the entire next generation of software development.